Hey, Greysteel Nation, Sully here. And the barbell prescription has three major divisions: the why, the what, and the how. In the first division, I lay out the theoretical foundations. This includes examination of the sick aging phenotype, the power of exercise medicine, and why strength training with barbells is the most powerful formulation and route of administration of exercise medicine for aging adults. In the second division, Andy Baker and I present the primary exercises and their rationale for inclusion in the program, the most useful and appropriate accessory and assistance exercises, and the necessary equipment and gear. In Division 3 of the barbell prescription, we talk about programming, which we define as a rational, long-term plan that manipulates training variables and specifies the structure of every workout and training period to achieve specific performance goals. It's all well and good to say that we need exercise medicine to retard unhealthy aging. And we can argue, quite convincingly, if I may say so, that strength training is the most important formulation of exercise medicine for aging adults, and that barbell training is the best route of administration of strength training medicine. But at the end of the day, we need to know the exact dose, frequency, and target parameters. As we say at the beginning of Division 3, the program is the prescription. Now, let's go back to that definition one more time. A rational, long-term plan that manipulates training variables and specifies the structure of every workout and training period to achieve specific performance goals. What are these training variables? Well, they are, in a word, manifold. Intensity, volume, frequency, training density, exercise selection, exercise variation, recovery time, nutritional variables, active rests, target metrics, bar speed, and so on. At the assumption of training, the novice and her coach need not obsess about all of the possible training variables. Training cycles are short and the program is linear. Exercise selection is standardized, and the only parameter that changes from one workout to the next is the load, or intensity. The number of variables demanding explicit attention grows longer as the athlete becomes more accomplished, and as training becomes more complex, and training cycles grow more protracted. The advanced intermediate athlete confronts daily changes in loading, reps, sets, and exercise selection. This manipulation of training variables, simple or complex, is all directed at an effective exploitation of the stress recovery adaptation cycle. A training stress is applied, the athlete is allowed to recover and adapt, and a new training stress is applied to the adapted state to drive progress. This is the simple underlying pattern of training, whether we are engaged in a brutishly simple linear progression with a raw novice, for whom the training period is about 48 to 72 hours or workout to workout, or a complex, highly periodized 4-year program with an elite Olympic athlete. It matters not whether our underlying metaphysical model of training is a stress recovery adaptation structure, or a fitness fatigue model, or a 2-factor model, or a Jedi Padawan progression model. Doesn't matter. It's all the stress recovery adaptation cycle in action. A training stress disrupts biological homeostasis. A suitable recovery allows the organism to recover and adapt at a new homeostatic baseline, at which point, not much sooner and not much later, another larger training stress may be profitably delivered to drive the organism into another cycle. This is a simple and powerful form of progressive overload for the improvement of performance and health. The overload event, as Reehuis calls it, can constitute a single workout-to-workout interval, or a single instance of a 1-week heavy, light, medium structure, or 3 ascending rounds of a 4-day split followed by a deload, or a year-long program for the strength and conditioning of an NFL champion. And training cycles can be compounded into something like a fractal structure, in which individual cycles constitute microcycles, which can be compounded into mesocycles, which in turn can be compounded into macro cycles. You can really go down a rabbit hole with this stuff. Of course, most of us don't have to go down that hole. Most general population athletes, particularly athletes of aging, will do extraordinarily well with, at most, weekly periods. Some will progress to monthly cycles, and a very few competitive masters will require block programming to reach their goal. In the fullness of time, we will observe the training of a committed and lucky athlete of aging, describe an individualized instantiation of the general trajectory outlined in this figure. Where are you on this training timeline? Tell us about your programming in the comments, and please give us a like while you're at it. That really helps us out a lot. Now then, most athletes will arrive somewhere on the flat part of that curve in their own individual nominal advanced zone, or NAS, and as dictated by Coach Life. We talked about the NAS and Coach Life in a recent video that you can link to here if you wish. The particular program structures any particular athlete will need to arrive in the NAS, progress along the NAS, and stay in the NAS will be highly individualized, because individualization is what is necessary at this stage of training. Okay, now, this is a very broad overview of programming, and entire books have been written on the topic, so we're really painting in broad brushstrokes here. The proper combination and manipulation of training variables, particularly for older athletes, is both an art and a science, combining physiology, medicine, psychology, nutrition, and a deep understanding of human movement and potential. Programming is thus a very human art and science, which ultimately sculpts and studies a population of one, the athlete on the platform. People argue endlessly about which training variables should be emphasized or devalued. Should our program push intensity or volume? Should we maximize recovery or use overreaching? Should the core exercises remain constant, or do we want endless variation? We have lots of heat and little light here, but there are solid foundations that we can agree on. First, all programming properly embodies progressive overload. How we do this is a forest of details where the devil lives, but without increasing the training stress and reaching for greater performance, there would seem to be little point. Even more fundamental, though, is what I call the primary training variable, the one that really does inarguably trump all others, the one I wanted to talk about today before we get any deeper into programming with this series of videos. That training variable is consistency. Now, this is by no means an original observation that I'm making here. In fact, it seems kind of silly to have to point it out at all, but long experience shows coaches that it bears constant repeating. The most highly sophisticated, individualized, and powerful program in the world will fail if the athlete does not show up. Many worthwhile human endeavors do not and cannot take place on a rigid schedule. Writing a poem, composing a symphony, falling in love, and enjoying a summer day do not and must not have timetables. Training is not such an endeavor. Exploitation of the stress recovery adaptation syndrome for performance and health improvement is an explicitly chronometric process, because adaptation resulting from a training stress takes time to actualize. And once achieved, the hard-fought adaptation has a half-life. Performance improvement will decay if it's not exploited. Of course, we all have discontinuities in our training because Coach Life is both generous and a bastard. But a training program is an explicitly time-like structure, and while it may survive minor errors in loading, rest time, exercise selection, and other variables, it cannot survive inconsistent training. Without consistency, there is no program. Once again, we see that life is a good metaphor for training. In other words, I'll be looking for you on the platform this week. Thanks for watching.